Jerry Brooks is going to be at the
This
conference.
meeting is being recorded.
Stephanie, did you hear that? Jerry Brooks is going to be at the conference, by the way. Just wanted you to know. I have the pleasure of introducing Stephanie Howe. She's the CEO of Gold EDU. She's a recent award winner of the WOSU Leadership Award. She's a co-author, if you can see this, of Control the Chaos. She's a tweeter, a blogger, a podcaster, but most importantly, she builds relationships as a co-teacher, co-facilitator, collaborator in her work with students. In the exploratory activities that she's done in my building, kids are so engaged that I have never had a discipline problem when she takes over a classroom. So I'm very excited for what she has for you tonight with design, with motivation in mind. Stephanie, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining tonight. I put the link to the slides in the chat, so feel free to follow along as we're going to be learning some ways to motivate students. I feel like I am the fun aunt when I go into different classrooms because I get to have fun and then I get to leave. And kids are always like, what are we doing today? It's going to be fun when I see you. So I feel like I love to motivate students. I like to have fun with students. And they really are learning even when they don't realize it. So we're gonna have some fun tonight, learning some different strategies. So the way that I kind of organize my model is using the ARCS model of instructional design. And what that means is it's attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction is what those letters stand for. So I try to incorporate those different pieces when I'm meeting with teachers to really develop a lesson when it comes to motivating students to try new things and to kind of fail forward. A little bit about me, I am an instructional technology coach in Pickerington Local School District. I know Mike shared a lot. One fact about me that you need to know right now is I'm an oversharer. So there's going to be a lot of resources here. We are recording, so if you need to, you can come back to the recording, but just know that I am an oversharer. So I just like to throw that out there. Yes, thank you for saying that, Crystal. Me too. That makes me feel a lot better. So when it comes to motivation, every student is motivated by something. And we're going to kind of look at a lot of those different things. And currently I'm reading a book it's about temperaments, and it's kind of about personality and why people are the way that they are. And I find that really interesting. But I'm also a nerd. And my son, he is very, very strong-willed, and he likes control. And so if I tell AJ, hey, clean up your toys, because of that personality type, sometimes it's an argument and sometimes it's a fight, and it's exhausting. And I've learned that I sometimes need to word things in a different way for him, just like some of our students. So I started off with intervention specialist as my role, and I had some of the students that were typically unmotivated. And so I quickly learned that it was about how I presented material to my students, but now that I have a son, to my son. And so rather than telling AJ, hey, clean up your toys, I make it a game. How fast can you clean up your toys? Can you beat the timer? And when I word it that way, AJ is more likely to clean up his toys, and it's less of a fight for me. And it was just one little thing that I had to change in my language with him. So the end goal is still the same. I wanted him to clean up his toys, but how I went about it is different. And so I think when we're doing that with our students, we need to think about what is our end goal, but how are we going to make sure that we motivate every single student in order to reach that end goal? And some of the resources are like required to join a group. So I'm going to throw that link in there. If you want the resources, they're completely free. But you do have to join like a Google group in order to access them, because that's how it's shared. So you'll just click the link that I just put in the chat and click join. If you are interested, this is like a incredible PLN where people are always sharing ideas, resources, so many different things. It can be overwhelming. So if you need to, there's a way in the group membership settings where you're able to change your email. So you can do a daily like digest where you get one email, or you can get every single email in the group. So I just want to throw that out there, that some of them will say like request access. Just join the group And then you can go in and change your email settings. You can get no email and have all the resources that you want to. But it's a great PLN where teachers are sharing, coaches, administration is sharing different ideas. And I'm always learning from this group. So with ARC's instructional design for model, what we're going to kind of go over is that attention. So this refers to getting students to really pay attention and getting them kind of directed to the task that we want them to do. The R is relevance. So we're trying to involve them in the instruction. We're trying to get them to understand how this relates to them, providing that why when it comes to instruction. The confidence, we want to make sure that students believe that they can do it and that they're able to do it. And then satisfaction. This is where we want students to feel good about what they do. And often I see this piece being missed from lessons because of time, and we kind of just skip over it. So we're going to look at each part of this ARC's design, and we're going to kind of go over each one of them. Now, again, I'm an oversharer. So is Crystal, which I appreciate. So with that, I want you to kind of think of it today's session as you might be on the skateboard, and that is okay, because when we're innovating and when we're thinking out of the box, we're going to take it step by step. And so when I'm coaching my teachers or working with a teacher, I try to think, where are they at? Are they at that bike stage and they're ready for that motorcycle? Or are they just trying out technology? And so we want to keep that in mind when we're working with teachers, or if we're trying to look at some of these resources today, where are you at if you are a teacher? And think about, how can I maybe just use one new strategy in order to change my instruction? And so I kind of like to think of it more of building up instead of building that car as you're driving it. So that way teachers can always upgrade, and it's just, hey, we're going to try this one thing, and then I follow up in a couple of weeks. Are you ready to try something else? And also using that rinse and repeat, where once students know the procedure for some of these fun and engaging activities, then they're able to really go back and do them. And you don't have to necessarily go over all the expectations again. You're able to just jump in, reuse that activity, and the students love it. So attention. Now that I've kind of talked about the ARC's model for design, I'm going to quiz you. And so here is a Google form. I'm going to throw it in the chat. And once you click that link, it's going to, again, take you to a Google form. Typically, when I do Magic Word, I have this in partners. So one student in the group would open this up. Sometimes I do group work, which is like 3 to 4 students. It just kind of depends. Also, I've realized that sometimes in classrooms, you have to build up group work. I've had a lot of students that just don't get along, but we have to teach them how to get along. And so sometimes I'll start this again, partner work. Sometimes it is whole group. So you're going to go ahead and put your name in here. And then you're going to go ahead and promise that you will not use Google to look up the answers. And then the passcode. So what I love about Google Forms is that you can add a passcode on a Google form. And so I can do this game. It's a quick intro game for my students, and I can go over directions, because we always have that one kid that tries to get a head start and add like all of these different words before everybody else. And so I'm able to lock this Google form for my students. So the password today is 12. So again, you'll type your name in here, yes, and then 12. And then once you hit next, it's going to take you on to the magic word. I talked about motivation, and I want you to brain dump and list everything that I kind of talked about when I was talking about motivation and making that the focus for today. So think about everything that I kind of talked about in the intro slides when it came to motivation. And as a group, typically, because we're virtual, we're just going to do this individually. But as a group, students will then throw out all of these different ideas of what they're learning on this Google form. And so if students were doing a short story, they might throw out everything that they remembered based on that short story. Or if students are learning vocabulary words, they might throw out all of the vocabulary words and definitions that they've been learning. You're trying to figure out what my magic word is. And usually I will do some type of prize for the group that gets it correct. So I'm going to give you about 1 minute to write as many words as you can remember. So you're doing that brain dump about motivation. and about 10 seconds to again list as many words as you can think about when it comes to student motivation. Okay, so then what I do is on this Google Sheet, all of the answers come to it because I use that Google form. And to set up that password protected right here, you just go into these 3 dots and you add response validation. Once you add response validation, you're able to come in here and you can do, I could have done a text, so I could have done a word. I chose a number just because sometimes that's easier for students to quickly type in. And then after that, I can want to add an error message. If you don't add an error message, it will tell the kids the correct answer. So that error message is very important. And this works on short answer type of questions. So again, you're trying to go over directions, you're able to password kind of protect that before they move on. And then on the magic word spreadsheet, the magic word was motivation. So I do a Command F and I would just type in motivation and it pops up in green where it showed up. So I can see that 3 groups got it correctly. And I can use these little arrows here to quickly find those 3 different groups or those 3 different people. So then I can give those rewards to those 3 people and kind of celebrate them real quick. So that can be a great way to kind of just have students quickly do a brain dump, or you can even do like, what do you know about this topic, prior knowledge, and just kind of getting that wonder and getting students talking about different things. You could do it with a vocabulary word that students don't know. What do you think this means? And they could type in different words, and then you're looking for one magic word to be that winner. And it's kind of fun because then you can also see other different things that people have said. So like connection, relevance, game, attention, and you can have conversations with students about why they might have picked those other words to kind of help students think about it in a different way. And all of these templates are in the speaker notes. So if you do want to use this for your classroom, or you have a teacher that you want to try this with, down in the speaker note, you're able to find that link right here and it should force a copy. And then you can also see the one that we're using, it's linked on the picture. The next one is anticipation stations. So we did this with Touching Spiritbear. It was a novel that students were about to read. And you want to, again, add that wonder for students. And what we had is we had 4 different stations. So with those 4 different stations, they were about 15 minutes long. And the students did different activities. So this first one right here is popcorn prediction. And what students do is there are texts that I just went to ChatGPT and I asked it to pull the top quotes from Touching Spiritbear. And once that ChatGPT gave me the list of the top 10 quotes, I was able to just copy and paste those onto my template. So ChatGPT has kind of helped us save some time as well. Once you have all the quotes kind of listed out, what we do is we print them and we cut them. And what happens is students are given a quote. So every single student has a different quote, or some students might have 2. And what they start to do is some think, pair, shares. And what students will have is they have this little handout right here. And on this handout, they have to make up to 4 predictions, and then they make their final prediction. And a lot of times we use this with ELA. However, you could use this with science, social studies, if you had like an article or something like that as well, or about a certain topic, and you could do different facts. And what students do is they pop around the room and they share their quote. So I would say, I would read my quote to my partner, and then my partner would read their quote to me. So I set about a 30-second timer and have partner A share and then partner B share. After both partners share, then what happens is students will then make a prediction. So based on those 2 pieces of textual evidence, students add to the document their prediction, what's going to happen. Then they meet a new partner. So they pop around the room again. And now they have 3 quotes that they've learned so far about the story. They make another prediction. Now that they have more textual evidence, they're able to make a better prediction, hopefully. And then again, they pop around the room, they do prediction number 3, prediction number 4, they have a more textual evidence, and then they make their final prediction about what they think Touching Spirit Bear is going to be about. And then what happens is the teacher hangs on to these papers until the end of Touching Spirit Bear, and they give some type of reward to the winning student that came up with the closest prediction of what the book is about. So just another great way for students to really learn all of the different things. Yeah, and in the chat, I saw a question about ChatGPT. It is a site, and I can throw that in the chat. It is AI. So what it's doing is, you ask it a question, you can ask it to write emails for you, a lot of different things. It's kind of like your personal secretary, and it will populate all of these different resources that you might need to kind of use and edit. However, I do say double check it. Don't just send it out. Double read it and make sure everything is correct before you send it out, because it does typically need to be edited or personalized by you. Another activity in our station was Picture This. So what students do is they had different vocabulary words, and we created a game. So the kids created the game. And this activity was created by Amanda Sandervolt, who is amazing if you're not following her on Twitter. And on here, the students had all of these different words. And so banishment. And we did this first one together. And what we kind of said was, okay, if we were being banished from Canes, that would be awful, right? And so we found the picture of Raising Canes, we added the X, and then we kind of talked about another picture. And then what happened is these clues right here, it's supposed to be hardest to easiest. And so when students are learning vocabulary, we're able to pick different vocab words to kind of just quickly review for 5 minutes every single day after these are made. And we're able to have conversation about, okay, well, what word do you think that is? And a lot of times students will create different examples based on the words, because we all kind of represent maybe a different picture for that word. And we had students kind of thinking out of the box with some of these words. And then we turned it into a game after the students created these different activities. Another one that we did is we took the kids to Alaska. So using virtual reality or using 360 videos in YouTube. And what happened is we asked the kids first to draw Alaska. Some kids thought Alaska was warm and they thought it was maybe a little beachy. And so what they quickly learned is through these different articles and activities that Alaska looks something like this. And they were able to then compare their drawing to what actually Alaska looks like. And so taking them to that setting in that book, or if you're doing a science concept or social studies, and just making it very relevant for them to be able to see and understand the different content. And then another activity is using these vocab words, and again, using group work. So students have these vocab words and they're able to sort them into different categories and have those conversations about where they think the word fits best. So this was, again, kind of our stations for getting the book ready. And there's years where our teachers have not done these anticipation stations and the kids are not as engaged as they are in Touching Spirit Bear. But because we took an extra day to do these, the kids the past 2 years have been way more engaged, and they are just always kind of going back to these activities and making connections of, well, I remember when I saw that in the virtual field trip, or I remember when we did the popcorn prediction and I got that hot dog quote and now I know what it means. And so they're able to kind of take all of these different activities and make stronger connections while they're reading, because it's grabbing their interest. They're wondering, what are they going to learn? And they are having fun with it as well. And then this is another one, 3 steps to wonder. So students are able to kind of say, I notice. What do you notice? What do you see? What do they think? And then what do they wonder? And I like to do this again with small groups, kind of think, pair, share, where first we're going to notice by ourselves, then we're going to kind of think about it, and then we're going to add a wonder about what we might be learning about. And then another one is which one doesn't belong. So you could have, and we can go ahead and do this in the chat. Which one do you think doesn't belong? And there's a nice little sentence starter for you where you're able to say blank doesn't belong because, And what happens then is we're able to have a discussion. And so teachers are able to add in different content here. But again, sometimes you want to start low cognitive. So when you're in August and September, you might want to do something where you've got that basketball, that brownie, and that cookie, and that cake, and you're having students learn how to kind of organize their language in order to compare and contrast and explain why something doesn't belong. So I'd love to see which one you guys think doesn't belong. I think it is the basketball, because these are desserts, but everybody might have a different reasoning. Oh, the cookie, the color, yeah. And then you can kind of see here is bullet points of why this person might think that, and you're kind of able to have students kind of add in there all of the different reasons why something might not be able to belong. And then they're able to gain a different perspective for why something might not belong. Yeah, the basketball, it looked like a brownie bite. Another way is before video. So if you're using video in the classroom, you can have different statements, and then you can have the kids agree or disagree. And then after they agree or disagree, they're watching the video and they are checking their answers. So again, kind of doing like a pre-assessment. Do you think astronauts brush their teeth in space? Is that, do you agree with that or do you disagree? And then they watch the video and they find out that answer. So based on some of these different questions, students are really interested and they're watching that video, and then they're able to see those answers while they're watching those different videos. So now we're ready for relevance. And what I want you to kind of think about in the chat is 3 whys. So why might students' motivation matter to me? Why does that matter to me as a teacher or an educator or a principal? And feel free to share in the chat. Why might it matter to people around me? And then why might it matter to the world? And so this is another strategy. It's called the 3 whys. It's from Harvard. It's called Project Zero. And on Project Zero, they have a ton of resources and ideas on this website. So if you just type Project Zero, you can see right here that you're able to go to collaboration and group learning, or you can go to any other kind of strategy that you might want to see. And then there's all of these different templates and ideas that you're able to use to kind of help students have different discussions, to think critically and have a different perspective. And so Crystal kind of shared in the chat, because if we're motivated, they will be engaged, and then the lesson will live on after the unit, hopefully. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And so what I typically do with 3 whys is whatever we're learning about, we then add that to the content. And then we talk about, okay, well, why does this matter to me? Why might it matter to the people around me? And why might it matter to the world? And students start to develop those 3 whys of why this content is really important and why they might need it when they are in the real world. And then it's also really important to create that psychological safe environment. And so I've done a couple different sessions on Google. So when back in 2019, I had the ability to go to Sydney, Australia, and I was at their Google office. And it was life-changing, this event. It was part of the Google Innovator Program. And Google really does have a psychological safe environment. And so just on here are just some resources and different ideas of how do we get kids to take risk? How do we get them comfortable sharing these different ideas? Because when I was at Google, before Google, I was very much so one person that might not share an idea because I had imposter syndrome. I didn't think I was good enough to share some of the ideas or some of the strategies that I was using with my students, or I felt like everybody was doing it. And so after Google, I really learned that people did care, and I was in a safe space where I could share and I could take risk, and I was able to kind of create that psychological safe environment. So I have a ton of different ways that you're able to create that environment, because it doesn't just happen. It does take a little bit of prep work. And I do have sessions on this. So if you are interested about that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to share this, because this has been kind of my passion this past year about how do we make students feel comfortable in the classroom. And it does come with allowing them to fail, allowing them to feel safe to speak up, which involves relationships and making sure that they have that connection to your classroom. And then having an essential question. So when we're creating a novel unit or some type of activity, it's really important. Our first step right here, you can see, is that essential question. So how do we create that essential question? We want it to be the focus of the unit. And this is kind of the focus that the students are going to answer in their essay. So we try to make it really engaging for students, really relevant to them. And we try to think about how it can maybe incorporate into their life. And so whenever we're working with a teacher, I'm always like, okay, what's the standard? Okay, what's our essential question? How are we going to kind of motivate students to go back to that question when they're thinking about different things? And then design thinking. So design thinking is another great strategy. This was another thing that I learned at Google. They use it a lot for a lot of their projects. And there's this one website that is really cool. I found it on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, you should definitely consider joining. And what this teacher did is they have this generator. So right here is the generator. And I can randomize it. And what students have to do is they have to think with design thinking. So design a textbook for a parent and child to use together. So that is their prompt. And then what I plan on doing, because I just found this, is having students brainstorm using a crazy 8s, but they're going to do a crazy 4. And they're going to brainstorm 4 different ideas that their brain is thinking about when it comes to designing this textbook for a parent and child to use together. And so after they come up with those 4 ideas, they're going to talk with a partner and pick which one would be best for that user. So in this case, our user is the parent and the child. And then after that, they start to pitch their idea. So they're going to draw and sketch their invention. They're going to explain how it works. They're going to name their product and come up with a slogan. And then they're going to do like an elevator pitch to explain that. So we only have 5 more days of school left, which I feel like this could be a great way to kind of end the year and have students get creative and thinking out loud. And I also think with this, with the brainstorm, you could do this at the beginning of the year to create that safe space and really build up students to know, hey, you can throw your worst idea out there and it's going to be okay. And our group can make it better. So that is another great strategy that I just found on Twitter. So if you're not on Twitter, I highly suggest getting on there, following different people for different ideas, because you're always learning and you're always able to kind of take those ideas and think a little bit differently. Which now brings us to confidence. So when it comes to confidence, we want our students to believe that they are able to be successful. So I love this activity from EB Teacher. And what it is, it has feed forward. And so what students are able to do is there's stems and topics and adjectives here. Typically, when I hear students giving feedback, it's just like, you did a great job. Well, what did they do a great job on? Sometimes I hear that with different teachers too. And feedback is really important to help build that confidence. And so right here, you can see that you would grab a stem. So I like how you, and then the students would fill in the blank. And then they would pick a topic. So I like how you maybe use, and this could be with teachers, an engagement strategy with your students. And then you could add a strong adjective to really help that as well. So you can see here, I like how you communicated the lesson goals really clearly. And these are, again, better ways to give feedback to our students, but also for peer feedback too. And then on the next slide, they're able to create their kudos, and they can do their to, from, and then their message. But again, it's creating that confidence and knowing how to give feedback correctly. Again, I like to do a lot of things with personality tests. And so knowing those different personalities, I use the true colors, and there's golds. Those are your like go-getter type of people. They want you to follow the rubric. So they are going to make sure that they follow that rubric to a T. And if you decide to give feedback that was not on the rubric, they're going to be pretty upset with you. So knowing that about a person can really help. Where your greens are your thinkers, they are always questioning everything about you. If you're thinking about some teachers that might just question everything that you do, they are your thinkers. And so when it comes to a green, you want to ask them questions when you're giving them feedback. And then when it comes to yellows or oranges, those are your fun students. Those are my students that were with me in summer school. They're just a lot of fun. They're adventurous. And those kids need it to be personalized to them. So they need you to not just use like a comment bank. They need you to say their name. They need you to really think about their work. And then the last color is blues. Those are your students that need a relationship. They're very people focused. And so when it comes to giving them feedback, you need to do a feedback sandwich. So what's something good that they did, something that needs improvement, and then their final piece, which is something good. And so knowing that about a person has really helped me with coaching and with leadership, because then I'm able to address that person with the feedback that they need. So that is another area that I'm really interested in, and it's really helped me in my coaching. The Starbucks rubric. So right here is a rubric, and you can see it's out of 4. And what happens is you go to Starbucks, and I kind of like to use this with students so they know what type of work they're turning in to help build that confidence. So when you go to Starbucks and you order exactly what you want, and then they just all of a sudden maybe give you an extra whipped cream, or it's better than what you expected, that's like a 4. Where a 3 would be maybe something exactly what you ordered. There's no mistakes, you're satisfied, and it's just like exactly kind of where you're at. The 2, it's missing something. Maybe the cup is the wrong size. You ordered a medium and it is a small, and there's just, it's the right drink, but there's just something wrong there, like the size, or you didn't get ice or something like that. And then the number 1 is where your order is completely wrong. You ordered something that might have been chocolatey and you come out with something strawberry. Like, that is very upsetting. And so when I'm using this rubric with students, it just kind of helps them think about their learning and what they're turning in for different projects and activities. And then we relate that to an actual rubric. And then roadmaps. Roadmaps are a great way to kind of scaffold learning. So you can see here that I might have the students do all of these activities in the order that they are. So I take the end goal, I look at the standard, and what I do is I say, okay, here's the end goal, and I backwards plan, use backwards design to create these roadmaps. So that way, when I am working with different teachers, okay, what skills do I need to have in order for this student to be successful? And so then I think backwards of, okay, how do I get them to that end goal or that end learning target or essential question? So then we're able to map out different activities that the students can do in order to get to that final product, which is that finish line. And students are also able to track their progress. A lot of my kids will use the shape tools here, and a lot of them love the lightning bolts, and they will just add these on top. And that satisfaction of being able to say, like, I am done with this task is really great for them. I've used this with teachers too in professional learning, where I've created roadmaps for them, so they know every single step that they need to do in order to be successful to complete that target. So again, it's just kind of like a project management tool that I like to use with all of the different stakeholders, so students and teachers. And then bump it up. So with this activity, giving students worked out examples so they can see, okay, what is a 0? What is a 5? And so once I have all of those different things, these numbers just go on the pieces of work. And again, ChatGPT can be helpful when you're trying to maybe say, okay, what would this look like, incomplete? Or what would this look like as a 10, this assignment? And you can grab all of those different examples, or you can use previous students' work. And you're able to kind of show the students, okay, here's where a 0 is, here's where a 5 is. And then they're able to try to bump it up. Or I can say, okay, this right now is a 3. How could we bump it up to a 5 and have those conversations with students? And then checking in and out. So this is a great way for students to kind of say, okay, how am I feeling right now? My goal today. What is the pre-lesson understanding? And then they check out at the very end. And we're able to compare and contrast how they came in and how they walked out. And I'm able to kind of have that conversation with different students as well. You can kind of see here's the paper version. So that, again, they just highlight real quick where they're at. And then they just kind of really quickly are able to give an explanation. And then games. Games are a great way to have students learn when they don't even realize that they're learning. And so this was a fun game that I found on TikTok that one of my teachers sent me. Teachers, or if you're doing this in a PD, you just print out the flags and put magnets on the back of them. And every single team will have the same amount of flags at the start. And so they get with a group, they answer questions. And so if you have different questions for students, you just kind of cut them up and you have them answer those. And then they check in with the teacher. So as students are checking in, if they get it correct, they get to steal a flag from another team. At the end of the game, they find out the worth of these flags. So every single flag is worth a different amount of points. So down here, I would say, okay, green flags are worth 5 points, pink flags are 3, and I could change them up every single time that we play this. This is one of those that you can rinse and repeat. And then what happens is the team at the end of the game, the most points wins. And so again, it's just a great way to get questions and get students up and moving, and they're working with their group to kind of capture the flag. Now we're at that last letter, satisfaction. And so when it comes to this, we are thinking about their control over their learning. We're celebrating what they did. And what I like to use with this is I work with our behavior coach a lot, Tara Ruckman, and she has taught me about this forced choice reward survey. And what happens is students complete a Google form. And so if you want to set this up, there's a video on how to do so. But this is kind of the back end. And once we go into the form, it's different questions to figure out what motivates our students. And it's kind of like a would you rather type of an assessment. So would you rather have a teacher write 100 on your paper or be the first to finish your work? Would you rather have a bag of chips, or do you want to be with a classmate and have them ask you to be on their team? And you can also have staff do this. And it's really interesting to see what motivates individuals. And so when I'm doing this, I usually do it at the beginning of the year. And I can see here, based on those results, it will pull using Autocrat. And again, there's a video that walks you through how to use this. And I can see here on my scores that adult approval was my top result. And based on this, I'm able to know that my student really needs maybe these type of rewards where they do like a TikTok dance with a teacher, or they sit next to me, or they're my classroom helper, where some students are motivated by consumables. And so they want those snacks, they want those stickers. And when I was teaching, to be honest, I thought it was consumables. And what I quickly realized is that's not what really motivates a lot of students. I did this during my summer school course. And I thought, oh, these kids are going to love my Jolly Ranchers. And I did the test, and a lot of them loved adult approval. And these are middle schoolers. And so they just wanted me to give them better feedback. They wanted me to spend time with them. And that was really interesting to me because of the results that I received. Because I was like, oh, every kid just wants, consumables or whatever. But there are different things that motivate different students. And so this is really helpful when you have a kid that you're like, I don't know what motivates him. And so you can give them this survey and you're able to kind of figure out what you can do based on that. And then there's also those 5 love languages, which relates really close to that forced choice rewards. One-on-one check-ins are a great way as well to celebrate student success. And so I like to create a sign-up sheet for students where they're able to sign up with me to meet with me. Checklists, you're able to kind of create how students are doing, and then you're able to conference with them to check in with them and celebrate if they finished everything, or what's their next step, what's their action item, and what's those next steps for them. There's also like giving students stickers. We had a teacher that is in Mike's building, and she had the kids get stickers after they completed activities, and they're 6th graders, and they absolutely loved it. They were trying to collect all of the different stickers, and they were completing activities like crazy. And so this is a very similar activity where they would just grab these different maps after they complete each of these different activities, and they get that teacher check. So having students track their success and then celebrating it as well. So thank you so much for joining me. I know there was a lot of information. So if you have questions, my email, my Twitter is here. Feel free to reach out if you do have questions. There are a lot of videos that go along with the resources as well. So feel free to check those out too. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Stephanie. That was awesome. I wish, remind me, John, when we put things in the chat and we record, do we have a history of that?
We do. We can send that out with the recording of the video.
She was mentioning a lot of things that I think people were kind of putting in, like the references to it, and then plus her slides. So that was really awesome. Stephanie, I love the whole idea of like motivation and student motivations and, you know, engagement. That's really been a focus in our district. And I would bet with your classes, when you really focus on that motivation, you have very few students who are not engaged.
Yeah, it's very little classroom management issues when they are engaged. So
Yep.
it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Let's see. Oh, can you share your top Twitter followers?
Yeah, I'll throw their handles in the chat. Does that work?
Yep, that's perfect. That's great. Thank you. Any other question? Oh, someone said, what was the Harvard site again?
Project Zero.
Project Zero. We'll put that in the chat.
Yeah, and
John.
Hilliard did a PD on it last summer. So sometimes there's like PDs on it and it was completely free. So I'll always like join their emails and there could be one local.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you so much. And also just to remind everybody, I know we talked about our conference, that we are still looking for presenters for our conference. So if you are doing some really cool things in your classrooms, in your buildings, and you would like the opportunity to present, go to our website. You can fill out the presenter application. And if you do that by June 1st, we'll be making some of our decisions, and then you'll be notified if you were chosen to present. Great opportunity to share best practices from the practitioners to other practitioners. So thank you. I'm trying to see, no other questions. Mike, anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to thank Stephanie, to watch what she talked about today in work and to see it in action is just amazing. And I know the teachers are super excited when they see her. In fact, I bet she's booked until the middle of next year to come into classrooms and co-teach with teachers. So unfortunately, she couldn't present at our conference. I was beating her up a little bit to come present again because she had a record number of teachers at her presentation last year, but she's got a conflict, so we'll try to get her back another time.
Yes, please, because OMLA is amazing.
We'll hold you to that, Stephanie. We'll make sure. 2024 is your year.
Yes, yes, it is.